The coffee was cold. I didn't care. I'd been sitting in that booth at Pete's Diner for 2 hours, nursing the same cup of mud, watching the door. My back was to the wall. Old habit. My father taught me that in a bar fight in '78. Always see the door. The bell jingled. 2 men walked in. Suits. Cheap ones. They didn't look at me. They slid into the booth behind mine. I heard the vinyl creak. I heard one of them order black coffee and apple pie. The other ordered water. Then I heard it. Velez. Danny Velez. You got the file. My hand froze halfway to my mouth. The coffee cup hovered. My heart stopped for a full second and then started again, louder, harder, like a punch to the inside of my ribs, right here. The CSU report came back. It's a match. The trace from the warehouse. It's his. I put the cup down. My hand shook. I put my other hand on top of it to stop the shaking. It didn't work. My son. Danny. 5 years. 5 years since he walked out the door. 5 years of empty chairs at Christmas. 5 years of his mother crying herself to sleep before the cancer took her. 5 years of not knowing if he was alive or dead. And now these 2 men in cheap suits were talking about him like he was a file. A case. A piece of evidence. Where's he at? Motel off Route 9. Blue Star. Room 14. We move tomorrow. DA wants him by Friday. Press conference. We need to make it look clean. Clean. They said clean. Like he was a stain they were scrubbing off the floor. I didn't turn around. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, staring at the congealed gravy on my plate, listening to the men who knew where my son was sleeping tonight, that I was 58 years old. I'd served in the Army. I'd rebuilt transmissions with my bare hands. I'd buried my wife on a Tuesday in the rain. I'd spent the last 5 years walking the streets of this town, looking into every face, hoping to see my boy. And now I knew exactly where he was. But I also knew something else. These 2 men weren't cops. I'd been around cops my whole life. My brother was a cop. These 2 talked like cops. They had the cadence, the jargon, but they didn't feel like cops. They felt like hunters. And my son was their prey. I took a slow breath. I reached for my wallet. I pulled out a 20 and dropped it on the table. I didn't wait for change. I stood up. My knees popped. I walked past their booth. I didn't look at them. I looked at the door. The bell jingled. The Oklahoma heat hit me like a fist. I got in my pickup. Sat there for a minute. My hands on the wheel. My knuckles white. I thought about Danny. The way he laughed. The way he said Dad, like it was a safe word. The way he looked at me the last time I saw him, like he was already gone. I started the engine. I headed east. Toward Route 9. The Blue Star Motel was a dump. I knew it before I pulled in. The paint was peeling. The neon sign was missing 2 letters. The parking lot was cracked concrete and weeds. I counted 5 cars. One of them was a sedan with government plates. I parked 3 spots down from room 14. I killed the engine. I watched. The curtains were drawn. The door was shut. The afternoon sun baked the asphalt. I wiped sweat off my face. I waited. 10 minutes. 20. Half an hour. The door opened. He stepped out. Danny. My boy. He was thinner. There was a scar on his chin that wasn't there before. He wore a denim jacket. His hair was longer. But it was him. It was his walk. His shoulders. The way he shoved his hands in his pockets. I reached for the door handle. Then I saw the sedan. The one with the government plates. 2 men got out. Not the suits from the diner. These men were heavier. Harder. Their jackets were unbuttoned. I saw the holsters. They walked toward Danny. He saw them. He turned. He ran. They ran after him. I got out of the truck. I didn't think. I just moved. There was a piece of iron pipe on the ground near the dumpster. I picked it up. It was heavy. It felt good in my hand. Danny hit the chain-link fence at the edge of the lot. He tried to climb. His foot slipped. The first man grabbed him by the jacket. The second man was right there. I swung the pipe. It connected with the second man's arm. The gun in his hand fired into the ground. He screamed. I swung again. He went down. The first man let go of Danny and reached for his waist. I kicked him in the knee. Something cracked. He fell. Danny was staring at me. His face was white. Dad, get in the truck. Now. He didn't move. Now, Danny. He ran. I followed. The truck was still idling. I threw myself into the driver's seat. Danny was in the passenger seat before I put it in reverse. Tires squealed. I floored it. The motel disappeared in the rearview mirror. I drove. No destination. Just away. Dirt roads. Farm tracks. I didn't stop until the road ended at a locked gate. I killed the engine. Silence. Just the cicadas. Danny was shaking. He was crying. I hadn't seen him cry since he was 12 years old, Dad. I know. How did you find me? I heard your name, I said. In a diner. 2 men. They had a file. They're not cops, he said. I know. They're internal affairs. They think I killed someone. Did you? He looked at me. His eyes were red and wet. No, Dad. I never killed anyone. Who do they think you killed? A man named Eddie Price. He was a janitor at the warehouse where I used to work. He was murdered 5 years ago. They found his body in the loading bay. I was there that night. I saw it happen. Saw what Danny closed his eyes. I saw a cop shoot him. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, listening. I was working late. I heard a noise. I went to check. I saw this detective standing over Eddie's body. The detective had a gun in his hand. He saw me. He pointed the gun at me. But he didn't shoot. Someone honked a horn. He ran. I ran too. Did you go to the police? I tried. I went to the precinct the next morning. They put me in a room. And the same detective walked in. He knew my name. He told me if I ever said anything, he'd make me disappear. And he'd find you and Mom too. My hands were gripping the wheel so tight the leather creaked. You should have told me. I was trying to protect you, Dad. You ran away for 5 years. I was scared. I was just a kid. You were 19, I said. You were a man. And you ran. He didn't argue. He just sat there, staring at his hands. What's the detective's name? I asked. Miller. Sergeant Miller. He's the lead investigator on the case now. He's building the case against me. I looked out the windshield. The sun was going down. The sky was orange and red. Where's the evidence? I asked. What? The evidence against you. The gun. The trace. Where is it? At the precinct. In the evidence locker. I started the engine. What are you doing? Danny asked. I'm going to get it. Dad, that's insane. You can't break into a police station. I looked at him. I served this country for 4 years. I rebuilt transmissions for 40. I buried your mother. And I spent 5 years thinking you were dead. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life wondering if you're guilty. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Then he said, I'm going with you. No, you're not. Yes, I am. You're all I've got left, Dad. I looked at his face. His mother's eyes. His mother's stubbornness. Fine, I said. But you do what I tell you. We drove to Ray's auto salvage on the edge of Bristow. Ray was 73. He'd been a cop for 20 years. He knew everyone. He knew everything. And he owed me that. I told him what I needed. He didn't argue. He just handed me a bag. Lockpicks. Gloves. A flashlight. A blueprint of the precinct basement. Reggie's the property clerk, Ray said. He works the night shift. He's young and he's careless. He'll be in the back room watching porn on his phone. The gate lock is a standard 4-digit keypad. The code is 8192. Don't ask me how I know. What about the evidence? Gun and trace samples are in box 14B. The chain of custody log is in the filing cabinet next to the door. Take photos. Don't take anything. If something goes missing, they'll know. Thanks, Ray. Don't thank me. Just don't get caught. It was 2 a.m. when we reached the precinct. I parked 4 blocks away. We walked. The streets were empty. The building was a concrete box, ugly and dark, that we found the grate behind the dumpster in the alley. It was bolted to the wall. I worked the bolts loose with a wrench. The grate came off. The air duct was narrow. Black. I could hear Danny breathing behind me. I'll go first. I said, Dad, wait here. Count to 60. Then follow. I climbed in. The duct was tight. My shoulders scraped the sides. The flashlight was in my teeth. I crawled. 10 feet. 20. I reached the end. A grate. Beyond it, the evidence locker. Dark. Empty. I worked the grate open. Dropped down. My knees hit the concrete floor. I stood up. My back was screaming. I found the filing cabinet. The log was inside. I started taking photos. Every page. Every signature. Then I heard the footsteps. I froze. The footsteps stopped. A key turned in the lock of the basement door. I ducked behind a shelf. I held my breath. The door opened. The light came on. A man walked in. Big. Broad shoulders. His face was hard. He was wearing a suit. No tie. His holster was visible under his jacket. He walked straight to the evidence locker. He opened it. He pulled out a box. Box 14B. He opened the box. He took out the gun. The evidence gun. He looked at it. He turned it over in his hands. Then he spoke. I know you're there, Frank. My blood turned to ice. I've been waiting for you. He turned. He was looking right at me. Sergeant Miller. He smiled. It was a cold smile. The kind that didn't reach his eyes. Your boy didn't kill Eddie Price, he said. I did. And now you're going to help me make sure he takes the fall for it. He raised the gun. He pointed it at my head. Or I'll shoot you right here and make it look like you broke in to destroy evidence. Just another old man who lost his mind. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stared at him. Then I heard Danny's voice from the duct. Let him go, Miller. Miller turned. For one split second, he wasn't looking at me. I swung the flashlight. It connected with his jaw. He fired the gun. The bullet hit the wall. I swung again. He went down. Danny dropped from the duct. He landed on Miller's back. The gun skittered across the floor. I picked it up. Miller was on his stomach. Danny was on top of him. Danny's face was white. His eyes were wild. Don't kill him. I said, I won't, Danny said. But I want him to see my face when the cuffs go on. I pulled out my phone. I called 911. I told the dispatcher there was a detective at the precinct who had just confessed to a murder. I told them to send uniforms. Miller laughed. It was a broken laugh. You think anyone's going to believe you, a mechanic and his fugitive son? You're nothing. I knelt down. I put my face close to his. We'll see. I said. The uniforms came. They cuffed Miller. They took our statements. They looked at the photos on my phone. The gun. The chain of custody log. Everything. When the sun came up, they let us go. Miller was arrested. The case was reopened. Danny's name was cleared. It took 6 months. But it happened. Now Danny and I sit on the porch every evening. We don't talk much. We don't have to. We just sit there, watching the sun go down, knowing we're both still here. I learned something that day. Blood doesn't make a family. Actions do. I spent 5 years thinking my son was gone. But he was just waiting for me to find him. And I did. Because I ate lunch at a local diner, and 2 men mentioned his name. Sometimes the most important moments don't announce themselves. You just have to be there to hear them. If this story moved you, if you know what it's like to fight for someone you love, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Because every family has a story. This one is ours. There were years I thought love was a transaction. If I gave enough, I'd get enough back. That's how I was raised. You work hard. You keep your head down. You take care of your people, and they take care of you. I was wrong. My name is Frank Velez. I'm 58 years old. I spent 40 of those years on my back under cars, grease in my fingernails, oil in my blood. I rebuilt engines that other mechanics said were dead. I fixed transmissions that had been written off. I worked double shifts so my wife could stay home with Danny. I skipped lunch so I could put money in his college fund. I gave up hunting season so I could buy her the good medicine when she got sick. And what did I get for it? A wife who looked through me like I was a window. A son who disappeared without a word. A life spent giving and giving until there was nothing left but tired bones and a cold cup of coffee at Pete's Diner. My wife, Sarah. She was beautiful. I met her in 1988 at a county fair. She was wearing a sundress and she had honey in her hair from the cotton candy stand. I was 24 and I thought I'd won the lottery. She laughed at my jokes. She held my hand. She said I made her feel safe. But somewhere along the line, safe became boring. She stopped laughing at my jokes. She stopped holding my hand. She started looking at me like I was furniture. Like I was just the man who brought home the paycheck and fixed the sink and mowed the lawn. I'd come home from a 12-hour shift, my hands bleeding from a snapped bolt, and she'd ask me what was for dinner. Not how was your day? Not are you okay? What's for dinner? I made dinner. I always made dinner. I made it while she watched TV. I made it while she talked on the phone. I made it while she sat at the kitchen table and read magazines and didn't look up once. But I didn't complain. Because I loved her. I loved her the way a man loves a thing he's built with his own hands. Even when it starts to crack, you can't just walk away. You patch it. You hold it together. You hope. Danny was different. He was my boy. I taught him how to throw a baseball. I taught him how to change a tire. I taught him that a man's word is his bond and that you never, ever leave someone you love behind. He was 9 years old when he told me he wanted to be a mechanic like me. I was so proud I almost cried. I bought him a set of toy tools. He carried them everywhere. He'd follow me into the garage and sit on a milk crate and hand me wrenches and ask questions. Why does the engine need oil? What makes the pistons move? Can I drive when I'm 16, 15? I said, if you're good. He hugged me. He actually hugged me. I can still feel it. The small arms around my neck. The smell of dirt and sweat and little boy. Then he got older. He stopped following me to the garage. He stopped asking questions. He started looking at his phone instead of at me. He started staying out late. He started arguing with his mother. He started pulling away. I told myself it was just a phase. Boys grow up. They need space. They come back. But he didn't come back. He was 19 when he walked out that door. He said he had a late shift at the warehouse. I didn't think anything of it. I was in the garage, replacing the alternator on a '94 Chevy. I heard the door slam. I heard his footsteps on the porch. I heard his car start and drive away. I never saw him again. Not that night. Not the next day. Not the week after that. His room stayed exactly the way he left it. Bed unmade. Clothes on the floor. A half-empty water bottle on the nightstand. Sarah would walk past his door and cry. I'd walk past it and feel nothing. Just a hollow space where my heart used to be. I reported him missing. The cops came. They asked questions. They made notes. They said they'd look into it. They didn't look into it. He was a 19-year-old kid from a working-class family. He wasn't a news story. He wasn't a priority. So I looked myself. I walked the streets. I went to the homeless shelters. I checked the morgues. I called every hospital in the state. I spent the life savings I'd set aside for his college tuition on a private investigator who took my money and found nothing. Meanwhile, Sarah got sicker. Cancer. The same thing that took her mother. I sold my tools to pay for her treatments. I sold my fishing boat, the one my father left me. I sold everything I had except the pickup truck, and I kept that because I needed it to drive her to chemo. She died on a Tuesday in November. It was raining. I stood over her grave, and I felt nothing. Not because I didn't love her. Because I had emptied myself out. Every drop of love I ever had, I poured into her and Danny. And when I was empty, they left. That was 4 years ago. Since then, I've been a ghost. I get up. I go to work. I eat at Pete's Diner. I come home. I sleep. I repeat. I stopped talking to people. I stopped answering the phone. I stopped hoping. I didn't think I had anything left to give. That was before the diner. Before I heard his name. When I heard those two men say Danny Velez, I felt something crack open inside me. Something I thought was dead. Something I thought I'd buried right next to Sarah. It wasn't love. Not at first. It was rage. Cold, hard, white-hot rage. The kind that makes your hands shake and your vision narrow. The kind that takes over your whole body and moves you like a puppet. I had spent my whole life being gentle, being quiet, being the man who fixed things and never broke anything. I'd let my wife ignore me. I'd let my son run away. I'd let the world take and take and take until I was a shell. But that rage, that was mine. And it was alive. I thought about all the years I'd apologized for things that weren't my fault. I thought about all the dinners I'd made alone while Sarah watched TV. I thought about all the birthdays and Christmases I'd spent at work so I could give them better lives. I thought about the last time I hugged Danny. The way his body was stiff. The way he pulled away first. And then I thought about what those men said. Motel. Room 14. Blue starred out. My son was alive. After 5 years of nothing, he was alive. And I didn't care what he'd done. I didn't care if he was guilty of every crime in the book. He was my boy, and I was going to bring him home. That's what makes a father. Not the blood. Not the name. The willingness to crawl through broken glass for someone who broke your heart. So I walked out of that diner. I got in my truck. I drove to the Blue Star. And when I saw my son running from those men, I didn't hesitate. I picked up that pipe. I swung it. I hurt people. I broke bones. I did it without thinking because protecting him was the only thought I had left. Afterwards, when we were sitting in the truck on that logging trail, Danny asked me why I came. Why I didn't just let the police handle it. I looked at him. I saw the scar on his chin. I saw the fear in his eyes. I saw the boy I'd taught to throw a baseball, the boy who'd hugged me in the garage, the boy who'd disappeared and taken every good thing I'd ever felt with him. Because you're my son, I said. And I never stopped being your father. He started crying. Loud, ugly, shaking sobs. The kind of crying a man does when he's held it in for too long. I didn't say anything else. I just sat there. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt something other than hollow. I felt hope. But hope wasn't enough. I knew that. I had to prove he was innocent. I had to find the truth. And the truth was locked in a basement in a police precinct with a man named Miller guarding it. I wasn't afraid of Miller. I'd already lost everything. What else could he take? What he didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I wasn't the same man who'd spent 40 years apologizing for existing. That man had died somewhere between the garage and the grave of his wife. Yet the man climbing into that air duct was someone else. Someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Someone who'd heard his son's name in a diner and decided that this time, He wasn't going to let go. That decision changed everything. Not just for Danny. For me. Because you don't have to be a hero to do something heroic. Sometimes you just have to be a father who's had enough. The day I walked into that precinct basement, I wasn't thinking about the past. I wasn't thinking about the years of being overlooked and undervalued. I wasn't thinking about Sarah or the chemo or the sold boat or the empty savings account. I was thinking about Danny and the sound of his voice saying, "Dad." That's what pulled me through the duct. That's what made me swing the flashlight. That's what made me look Sergeant Miller in the eye and not blink. When the police arrived, when they put Miller in cuffs, when they took my statement, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel anger. I felt something simpler. I felt like I'd finally done something right. Danny was cleared. The evidence was reviewed. Miller's confession was thrown out at first, but the photos on my phone, the ones I took of the chain of custody, they were enough to launch a full internal investigation. Miller had been dirty for years. They found other cases, other victims, other families who'd been torn apart by his lies. They sentenced him to 20 years. It wasn't enough, but it was something. Now Danny lives in the house with me. He goes to community college. He wants to be an auto technician. He's paying his own way. He comes home every night and sits at the dinner table and eats my cooking. He laughs at my jokes. He asks me how my day was. He hugged me again last week. A real hug. Not stiff. Not quick. He held on. "Thanks, Dad." He said, "For what?" "For not giving up." I didn't say anything. I just held him. And I thought about the years I'd spent being invisible. The years I'd spent thinking love was a transaction. The years I'd spent apologizing for being a good man who wasn't good enough. None of that mattered anymore. Because I'd done what mattered. I'd found my son. I'd brought him home. I'd cleared his name. And that, right there, was worth every single year of being overlooked. The world tells you that family is about blood. It's not. Family is about showing up when no one else does. It's about crawling through the dark when everyone tells you to stay out. It's about hearing a name in a diner and deciding that the person who gave you that name is worth fighting for. I ate lunch at a local diner. 2 men mentioned my son's name, and that moment changed everything. If you're still listening, if you've ever known what it's like to fight for someone who didn't fight for you, if you've ever loved someone who forgot how to love you back, don't give up. They might not say thank you. They might not even notice. But one day, when they need you, you'll know. And you'll be ready. Now Danny and I have a new routine. Sundays are for fishing. Tuesdays are for burgers at Pete's. Thursdays, he comes to the garage and hands me wrenches and asks questions. The same questions he asked when he was 9. Why does the engine need oil? Because friction is the enemy. What makes the pistons move? Explosion. Controlled. That's the art. Can I drive when I'm 16? He's 24 now. He's been driving for 8 years. But I still say the same thing. 15. If you're good. He smiles. And I smile back. That's all I ever wanted. Not thanks. Not recognition. Just him, smiling, in my garage, handing me a wrench. And I got it. Because I ate lunch at a local diner, and 2 men mentioned my son's name. If this story hit home, if you've ever fought for someone who couldn't fight for themselves, hit that like button. Leave a comment. Tell me about the person you'd crawl through broken glass for. Because that's what makes us human. That's what makes us family. Subscribe. Share. And remember, sometimes the biggest moments start with the smallest sounds. A jingle. A name. A heartbeat that you just have to be listening. They call me a ghost at the garage. Not to my face. Mechanics are cowards that way. They talk behind your back while you're under the chassis. But I heard them. Every word. Valessa's checked out. Man's a walking corpse. His kid ran off. Wife died. Not much left. He don't even blink when we talk to him. They didn't know. They didn't know that I heard everything. I heard them laughing about my lunch. I heard them betting on whether I'd show up on Monday. I heard them say I was useless. I never argued. I never defended myself. I just picked up my wrench and kept working. Because that's what Frank Valesse did. He kept working. The day after I found Danny, I went back to the garage. I told my boss I needed a week off. He looked at me. He looked at the grease on my hands. You sick? No. I got business. You got money for business. Doesn't matter. I'm taking the time. He didn't argue. Nobody argues with a man who's already dead. They just let him go. I went to Ray's salvage yard first. Ray was sitting on a crate, drinking coffee from a thermos. He didn't look surprised to see me. You got the photos, he said. Photograph the log. Photograph the gun. Photographed every page of the file. Good. What's next? I need to know everything about Miller. His schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. Ray drank his coffee. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Miller's been dirty since he was a patrolman. We all knew it. But he's smart. He covers his tracks. You're not going to catch him off guard. I'm not trying to catch him off guard. I'm trying to bury him. Ray looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll make some calls. 3 days later, I had a folder. Miller's routines. Miller's lunch spots. Miller's paramour. Miller's gambling debt. Every crack in his armor, written down in Ray's tight, shaky handwriting. He likes the track, Ray said. Every Saturday. Remington Park. He bets big on the long shots. Where does he sit? Box seats. Section A, close to the rail. He likes to be seen. What about the evidence locker? Who else has access? The property clerk, Reggie. The shift sergeant. And Miller. How do I get in without being seen? Ray pointed at the blueprint. The air duct. But you already know that. I need the exact schedule. When the basement is empty. When the cameras are off. They're never off. But there's a blind spot. The camera in the hallway outside the locker room. It's got a dead pixel. The image flickers. Maintenance hasn't fixed it because they don't know. But I know. I used to work that precinct. I wrote it all down. I memorized it. I didn't sleep that night that Danny saw the folder. He saw the notes. He saw the look on my face. Dad, what are you planning? I'm going to get the evidence. But you already have the photos. You said that was enough. It wasn't enough. They're not going to arrest Miller because I have photos. They're going to arrest him because I have the gun. And I'm going to have it. Danny grabbed my arm. His grip was tight. No. This is insane. If you get caught, you go to jail. You're the one who disappears this time. I looked at him. I looked at his face. The face I'd found. The face I'd fought for. The face that was going to be free. They can't take away what I've already lost, I said. I don't have anything else to give. Except this. I pulled away from him. The next night, I went back to the precinct. Same grate. Same duct. Same crawl through the dark. This time, the basement was empty. I opened the evidence locker. I found box 14B. I took the gun. I took the trace samples. I put them in a bag. I left a note in the box. Miller, I have what you need. Meet me at the salvage yard. Midnight. Come alone. I didn't sign it. I went back through the duct. I drove to Ray's yard. I waited. Miller came at 11:30. He didn't come alone. He came with 2 men. Uniforms. I saw them from the window. I counted 3. And Miller had his hand on his holster. I smiled. It was the first time I'd smiled in years. I walked out. I stood under the yard light. My hands were emptied. Frank, Miller said. His voice was cold. You're making a mistake. I don't make mistakes, I said. I fixed them. I held up the bag. The gun was inside. This is yours. The gun that killed Eddie Price. It's got your prints. It's got your residue. And I have the chain of custody to prove it was missing. Miller took a step forward. His men moved with him. That evidence is inadmissible. You stole it. You broke into a police station. You're a criminal, Frank. I'm a father, I said. And I'm going to give you a choice. You walk away now. Resign. Leave town. And I'll put this back where I found it. You never hear from me again. Or you try to take it from me. And I make sure every news station in the state has a copy of the photos I took. Miller's face went pale. His hand was still on his holstered. You don't have the guts, he said. I pulled out my phone. I held it up. The screen was lit. A number was already dialed. I've got a reporter on the line, I said. She's waiting for me to say the word. You want me to say the word? Miller looked at the gun in the bag. He looked at my phone. He looked at his men. They were shifting. Uneasy. Put the phone down. He said, make a decision, Miller. Silence. The crickets were loud. The yard was dark. Miller slowly took his hand off his holster. He turned to his men. Wait in the car. They didn't argue. They got back in the sedan. The doors slammed. Miller walked toward me. He stopped 5 feet away. What do you want? He said. I already told you. Walk away. Drop the case. Clear Danny's name. I can't clear his name. The DA already filed charges. Then stop the trial. Make it go away. Frank. It doesn't work that way. I stepped closer. My face was inches from his. You killed a man. You threatened my son. You ruined my family. And you're going to tell me it doesn't work that way? Miller looked at me. He looked at the bag. Then he nodded. I'll do it, he said. I handed him the bag. He took it. He looked at the gun inside. Good. I said. And then I hit him. My fist connected with his jaw. He dropped the bag. He staggered. I hit him again. He He went down. I picked up the bag. I put it in my pocket. I walked to my truck. He was yelling. His men were getting out of the sedan, but I was already in the truck. I floored it. Tires spun on the gravel. I was gone. The next morning, I called the reporter. I told her everything. The photos, the gun, the chain of custody, Miller's admission. She was skeptical. She was more than skeptical. She was suspicious. Mr. Velez, if this is true, you're exposing yourself to serious legal risk. I don't care about legal risk, I said. I care about my son. She asked for proof. I sent her the photos. I told her about the gun. I told her about Miller's confession. I told her about the empty box in the evidence locker. She called me back an hour later. I'm running the story. The story broke at noon. It was everywhere. Local news, state news, national wire services picked it up. A detective framing a kid. A father breaking into a precinct. It was the kind of story people couldn't look away from. Miller was suspended that afternoon. By nightfall, he was arrested. The evidence against him was overwhelming. I watched the coverage from my living room. Danny sat next to me. He didn't say a word. He just watched. When the anchor said Miller was in custody, Danny started crying. Dad, he said. You did it. No, I said. We did it. The weeks that followed were chaos. The trial was high profile. Miller's defense tried everything. They said I was a vigilante. They said the evidence was contaminated. They said Danny was the real killer. But the jury didn't buy it. The chain of custody photos, the witness testimony, Miller's own words in the salvage yard, all of it added up. They found him guilty. Guilty of murder. Guilty of obstruction. Guilty of framing an innocent man. He got 25 years. When the verdict was read, I was in the courtroom. I didn't cheer. I didn't clap. I just sat there. My son was free. My son's name was clear. And I was emptied. Because the fight was over. I took 3 months off from the garage. I sat on the porch. I drank coffee. I watched the sun rise and set. I did nothing. And for the first time in a decade, I was okay with nothing. The years of being invisible, of being overlooked, of being treated like furniture, they faded. They became background noise. They became someone else's story because I'd done what mattered. I'd found my son. I'd brought him home. I'd cleared his name. And I'd done it by being the person everyone had written off. The quiet one. The invisible one. The one who never fought back. When you've been empty for long enough, you learn to move in silence. You learn to see what others don't. You learn to wait. And when the moment comes, you don't hesitate. The day I heard Danny's name in that diner, I made a decision. The decision was simple. I would not let my son disappear again. I would not let the world take the last thing I had left. I would crawl through anything. I would do anything. And I did. Now Danny is graduating from community college next week. He's got a job offer from a dealership in Tulsa. He's got a future. He's got a life. He's got me. We still sit on the porch. We still drink coffee. We still don't talk much. But I look at him, and I see the boy who handed me wrenches. I see the boy who hugged me in the garage. I see the boy who disappeared and found his way home. And I remember. I remember the rage. The pipe. The air duct. The photo. I remember the look on Miller's face when he realized he'd lost. But most of all, I remember the sound of a name in a diner. Danny. That name changed everything. We don't always see the moments that define us. They don't come with warning labels. They don't announce themselves with trumpets. They come in whispers, in names, in bells that jingle. But if you're listening, if you're paying attention, if you're willing to wait, you'll hear them. And when you do, you'll be ready. So here's my story. A story about a man who had nothing left to lose and found everything he needed. A story about a father who refused to let go. You don't have to be a hero to save someone. You just have to be there. You just have to care. And you just have to be willing to fight. Even when everyone tells you the fight is already over. They were wrong about me. They were wrong about Danny. They were wrong about love. Love isn't a transaction. It's not about what you get back. It's about what you're willing to give, even when you know you'll get nothing in return. I gave everything. And in the end, I got my son back. That was enough. If you've ever loved someone who didn't love you back, don't give up. If you've ever been the invisible one, keep waiting. If you've ever heard a name that stopped your heart, listen to it. Sometimes the smallest sound is the one that saves you. I ate lunch at a local diner. 2 men mentioned my son's name. And I found him. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment that changed everything, a split second that turned your world upside down? Hit like. Leave a comment. Tell me your story. because every father's story is different. But the fight is always the same. Subscribe. Stay tuned. And remember, the sound that saves you is always closer than you think. That you just have to be brave enough to hear it. The trial was over. Miller was in prison. Danny was free. The story made the papers. I was a hero to strangers who'd never met me. Local news wanted interviews. A podcaster from Oklahoma City called 3 times. I didn't answer any of them. Because I wasn't a hero. I was just a mechanic who'd had enough. But there was one thing I still hadn't done. The one thing that kept me up at night. The one thing that gnawed at me like rust on a frame, that I hadn't told Danny everything. That I hadn't told him that I broke into a police station. I hadn't told him that I threatened Miller with a reporter. I hadn't told him that I took the gun. I hadn't told him that I still had the photos. And I hadn't told him that Miller was only part of the problem. That the system that let him get away with murder for 5 years, that system was still there. The department that covered for him was still there. The DA who filed charges against Danny without real evidence was still there. They hadn't paid for anything. They just let Miller take the fall and went back to business as usual. That wasn't justice. That was a scapegoat. That I thought about it every night. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. And I thought about the men who let Miller do what he did. 3 months went by. Danny got his GED. He enrolled in community college. He started working part-time at a tire shop. He came home every night. He ate dinner with me. He was rebuilding his life. And I was rebuilding mine. But there was a weight in my chest that wouldn't go away. A knot I couldn't untie. One night, I was watching the news. A segment came on about police reform. About accountability. About how the department in our county had been investigated for corruption 3 times in the last decade and never faced consequences. That I turned off the TV. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not a criminal lawyer. A civil rights lawyer. A woman named Grace Hong from Tulsa. She'd won cases against police departments before. She had a reputation. She was expensive. I didn't care. I told her the whole story. The diner. The motel. The air duct. The photos. The gun. Miller's confession. The chain of custody. Everything. She listened. She took notes. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Mr. Velez, this is extraordinary. What you did was illegal, but it was also necessary. And I think we can use it. Use it how? To sue the department. To sue the DA's office. To hold them accountable for what happened to your son. I didn't hesitate. Do it. She filed the lawsuit. The news picked it up. The department issued a statement. The DA's office issued a statement. They said they were confident they'd prevail. They said the lawsuit was baseless. But I had the photos. I had the chain of custody. I had Miller's confession on tape. And I had a son who was innocent. The discovery phase was brutal. They tried to smear me. They tried to smear Danny. They brought up his past. They brought up his time on the run. They made him look like a criminal. I watched it all. I didn't flinch. Because I knew. I knew what they were hiding. And I knew Grace would find it. 6 months into the lawsuit, she called me. Her voice was different. Edgy. Excited. Frank, I found something. Talk to me. The evidence locker. There was a pattern. For 5 years, evidence from Miller's cases was manipulated, altered, destroyed. It's systematic. And I have the signatures to prove it. Whose signatures? The shift sergeant. The property clerk. The supervising lieutenant. They all knew. They all covered for him. My hands were shaking. Can you prove it? I already have. I have the logs. I have the chain of custody photos you took. And I have a witness. Who? The property clerk. Reggie. He's agreed to testify. He says he saw Miller alter evidence on at least 12 occasions. He says he reported it to the lieutenant. And the lieutenant told him to keep quiet. I set the phone down. I walked to the window. I looked at the sky. It was raining. Soft and steady. How long until we go to trial? I asked. 6 weeks. Maybe less. The department is scrambling. Good, I said. Let them scramble. The trial was a circus. The courtroom was packed. Reporters. Cameras. People from the community. People who'd heard my story and Danny's story and decided they needed to see it for themselves. Grace laid it all out. The photos. The logs. Reggie's testimony. She built a mountain of evidence that couldn't be ignored. The department's lawyers argued back. They said the evidence was tainted. They said I was a vigilante. They said Danny had a history of running from the law. Grace stood up. She walked to the jury. She spoke quietly. Frank Velez broke the law. He admits that. He climbed into an air duct. He took photographs. He removed evidence. He did all of it because his son was being framed by a corrupt officer. And when he found the evidence, he didn't destroy it. He kept it. He protected it. And he used it to expose the truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we don't have to like what Mr. Velez did, but we can't deny what he found. He found a system that let a murderer walk free. He found a system that punished the innocent. And he found a system that covered its tracks every single time. We are not here to judge Frank Velez. We are here to judge the department that failed him, that failed his son, that failed every single person who trusted them to do the right thing. The jury deliberated for 2 days. I didn't sleep. Danny didn't sleep. We sat on the porch and drank coffee and waited. At noon on the 3rd day, they came back with a verdict for the plaintiff. The courtroom erupted. Danny grabbed my arm. His eyes were wet. Dad, we did it. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. I looked at Grace. She was smiling. I looked at the judge. He was already signing the order. The department was ordered to pay restitution. A massive amount. Enough to cover Danny's legal fees, his lost wages, his pain and suffering. Enough to punish them for what they'd done. But the money wasn't the point. The point was the statement. The acknowledgement. The recognition that they had failed. That Danny had been wronged. That the system had broken. And that a mechanic from Bristow, Oklahoma, had exposed it all. After the trial, I got more calls. More interviews. More people wanting to tell my story. I did a few. I sat down with a reporter from the state paper. I told her about the diner. About the name. About the air duct. As she asked me why I did it, I told her the truth because he's my son, and I was the only one who could. She printed it. The headline read, "A Father's Love Unmasks a Corrupt System." It was strange seeing it in print. Being called a hero. Being called a legend. Being called a man who stood up when no one else would. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a father. That's all I ever was. The weeks after the trial were quiet. Danny graduated from community college. He started working full-time at the dealership. He moved out. Got his own place. But he came back every Sunday. We'd sit on the porch. We'd drink coffee. We'd watch the sun go down. And we'd talk. About his job. About his girlfriend. About his plans. About the future. One Sunday, he looked at me. His face was serious. "Dad, I never said thank you. Not really. Not for everything. You don't have to." "Yes, I do." He leaned forward. "You gave up everything for me. Your savings. Your time. Your peace of mind. You broke the law. You risked everything. And you never once asked for anything in return. I didn't do it for thanks. I know. That's what makes it worth more." He hugged me. A long hug. Not stiff. Not quick. He held on. "I love you, Dad." I didn't say anything. I just held him. My son. My boy. The one I'd found in a motel off Route 9. "Love you too," I said. And I meant it. That night, I sat on the porch alone. The stars were out. The air was cool. I thought about everything that had happened. The diner. The motel. The air duct. The trial. The verdict. I thought about Sarah. About the cancer. About the chemo. About the empty savings account. I thought about Miller. About the gun. About the evidence. About the justice that took so long to come. And I thought about Danny. The boy who handed me wrenches. The boy who hugged me in the garage. The boy who ran away. The boy who came back. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel empty. I didn't feel invisible. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt peace. Because I'd done what I was supposed to do. I'd protected my son. I'd uncovered the truth. I'd held the system accountable. And I'd done it all by being the person they'd written off. The quiet mechanic. The invisible father. The man who had nothing left to lose. Turns out, that was exactly what they needed. Because when you have nothing left, you have everything. You have freedom. You have clarity. You have the ability to act without hesitation. And you have the courage to do what needs to be done. I didn't plan to be a hero. I didn't want to be a symbol. I just wanted my son to have a life. A real life. A life without looking over his shoulder. A life without fear. And now he has it. Now we both do. We don't talk about the trial much. We don't talk about Miller. We don't talk about the years that were stolen from us. We talk about now. We talk about tomorrow. We talk about the future. Because the past is over. The pain is done. The fight is finished. And we won. So if you're out there and you're fighting for someone you love, keep fighting. Don't stop. Don't give up. Don't let the world tell you that you're not enough. Because you are. I was a mechanic. An invisible man. A nobody. And I took down a system. I ate lunch at a local diner. Two men mention my son's name. And I didn't let go. If this story means something to you, if it reminds you of someone you love, or someone you lost, or someone you're still fighting for, hit that like button. Leave a comment. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because every father's fight is different, but the love is always the same. Subscribe. Stay with me. And remember, the name you hear in the quietest moment might be the one that saves you. Listen for it. I did. And it changed everything.